Hey friends, thank you so much for watching another one of our videos. We're super excited and we hope that you've found the video so far to be educational, inspirational, all of those things, and we hope that this week is going to be the same. And the conversation this week, I sit down with Andrew Vacca and we talk about everything from living in a world that's not accessible to the Americans with Disabilities Act. Like, we go all over the place. And what I love about this conversation is he's very patient and raw with me, and he just answers questions that, honestly, things that I don't think about a whole lot. But because he's my friend and vice versa, these are just healthy conversations for me to have, for him to have, and for us all to kind of be on the same page. So thank you so much for checking this conversation out. One thing that will really help us before we jump into that conversation, you take 2 seconds, click the subscribe button down at the bottom, and that will be a huge benefit for us. So thanks so much. Enjoy this conversation. Andrew Vacca, here we are in front of the cameras together.
Yes.
You've been looking forward to this day, right?
I have not.
This is not your comfort zone.
It is not my comfort zone at all.
I did not think I was going to get you here.
Well, I'm here, and it's all for you, Ryan.
You were voluntold.
I was.
And in all honesty, I really do appreciate you having this conversation. We're going to talk about your chair.
Okay.
We're going to talk about growing up in a world of inaccessibility versus accessibility. And you can answer a lot of questions that a lot of people can't answer. And so when I knew that we were going to have this conversation, you were the person that I wanted to have the conversation with. And here's why. When I first started working for Lyft, I had some tension built up. Like, I was new to the disability community, and I have a way of sticking my foot in my mouth and saying dumb things every now and then because my mouth moves faster than my brain. And I was afraid to say something dumb and offensive, politically incorrect, or whatever. But I had so many questions. And you cut that tension like day one. Said, just ask questions, Ryan. Like this is a safe environment to ask questions.
It is.
And you've answered so many questions. I used to call spinal bifida instead of spina bifida, and you corrected me. And
There's no L in it.
All right, there's no L, and I felt I didn't feel attacked. It was just very gentle, and you're just like, hey, there's no L. It's like, and I haven't made that mistake again. And I would have never known, honestly. I would have never known. I say words wrong all the time. Words are hard.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
So let's start this conversation by talking about why you're in the chair. Like, what got you here? Is it something you were born with? Talk about your condition.
Sure. Well, as you just mentioned, spina bifida with no L
Mm-hmm.
is a condition that I have, and it's a Latin term meaning split spine.
Okay.
So, getting into the details, it's during the first month of pregnancy where the spine doesn't fully form, come together. And where my spine didn't fully form was the L4, L5 region of the spine. So that causes some paralysis, other issues, cognitive issues that I have to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Is this, since it is before birth, that this actually happens, did your parents know that this was a condition that you were going to be born with, or surprise, like this is our journey now?
Well, I think I was one of their biggest surprises in their lifetime. I was born in 1982.
Okay.
So the testing wasn't as advanced as it is now.
Okay.
I was actually born a month early.
Oh, okay.
And so when I was born, they rushed me into intensive care. And how my parents saw me for the first time was, I've got this great color Polaroid picture.
Mm-hmm.
So they actually took a Polaroid picture of me, handed it to my parents while they were transporting me up to a bigger hospital.
So they saw a picture of you before they actually saw you?
Correct.
Oh, wow.
Correct.
I can't even imagine.
So obviously my parents had no clue.
Yeah.
I believe my mother told me one time that during an appointment, the term spina bifida was thrown out there, but nothing was really ever tested or done. So they had no idea.
It was just, there's potential, you know. So obviously you're in a chair, but you're mobile. Are there varying levels of spina bifida?
There are. It's each person with spina bifida is completely different.
Okay.
So I have some friends with spina bifida who don't walk at all, who are complete wheelchair users. I have friends who have spina bifida who, you look at them on the outside, you would never know they had the condition. So there's various levels of spina bifida.
Now I know one of the things that spina bifida it causes is pressure. Like when there's a hurricane coming or a storm coming, you always talk like you have headaches a lot. Like what causes that?
So one of these side effects or conditions that go with spina bifida, it's a condition called hydrocephalus, or it's fluid on the brain.
Okay.
So your body naturally produces about 5 to 7 tablespoons of spinal fluid per day.
Okay.
And that spinal fluid goes up and down your spine and just kind of keeps everything working and going. Well, when you have hydrocephalus, think of it as a clogged bathtub or a clogged sink,
Okay.
where that fluid has nowhere to go, so it just builds up in the brain. And about 30, 40 years ago, some doctors came up with a thing called a shunt, where it acts like a pump.
Okay.
So it's implanted in the brain, and it acts like a pump to help that spinal fluid go up and down the spine and act as normal. But when there's a pressure systems or storms that come through, the ventricles in the brain kind of swell, and that fluid has nowhere to go, so it again builds up. So that's
interesting.
Occasionally when there's high pressure systems or a storm coming through, cognitively I'm just much slower. I'm dragging. I just feel headaches.
Sure.
Things like that.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Now, is every person with spina? I know everybody's different with spina bifida, but is that fluid? Is that a pretty common issue within somebody with that condition?
I would estimate it's the most common issue, or one of the most common issues.
Okay.
That folks with spina bifida face.
Gotcha. Let's talk about growing up. So, like I said, you are mobile. Like you're pretty mobile. How early did you start using a chair? Like, do you remember like your first chair? Like how old were you?
Yeah, I received my first chair when I was 7 years old.
Okay.
Before that, I would use a walker, and before that, I had a little toy fire truck that I would kind of scoot around on. And as I grew, my dad actually cut the fire truck in half, put a wood block in there, and extended it.
No way.
So I could grow with it.
That's really cool.
I received my first chair when I was 7.
Okay. So school age. You're starting school, like you've already been in school a little bit. How was school, and were you treated differently? Was it easy to go to the bathroom? Like what are some of the challenges that you faced early on, and you kind of knew like this is gonna be a hard road? Like what were some of your experiences there?
Sure. I was well, I've had the sort of the gamut of education experiences. I was in mainstream school. Then I went to a private Christian school, and then I was homeschooled for a while. So I've kind of had all of various experiences. But when I was in elementary school, I believe it was 2nd grade, when the Americans with Disabilities Act came out. And then I remember going back into 3rd grade, and it was almost overnight that the school it was easier to navigate. There were ramps in places that there weren't.
Because they were required to.
Because they were required to. Doors were easier to get to. Classrooms were easier to navigate. I was receiving physical therapy at the school. Had a lot more attention from the nursing staff at school. So it was a definite shift from early on to see that come into place.
How did that make you? Do you remember? That's a long time ago. You're a little bit younger than me, but I don't remember a whole lot from 2nd grade. Do you remember like that shift? And did you feel empowered by those shifts? Did you feel like, okay, people see me, they see my struggles, or were you just kind of like, oh, cool, there's a wider door now?
It made me have a better sense of inclusion.
Okay.
I was now able to participate with my classmates going on.
If you wanted to be there, you could be there.
If I wanted to be there, I could be there, exactly.
Right.
So definitely gave that feeling of inclusion.
Nice. Now, we're not just going to talk about, a million years ago when you're in school. What are some experiences that you've experienced where that inclusion wasn't there, whether it be in social settings, professional settings. These are things that, for me, I'm not a wheelchair user, as you know. I don't think, there's just things I don't think about. It's not because I don't care, it's just because it doesn't personally impact me. But what are some experiences, and maybe you have some stories or something, that there was no ill intent, maybe on your friends or a room or whatever, but you just, like, you felt like you weren't part of what was going on, and it was just a simple accessibility thing.
Sure. Well, the main way that I've experienced that, or I feel that, is if I'm going into an older building or an older city. Like I spent a lot of time up in Boston, and Boston was founded in 1630.
Right.
And so those buildings,
before all of those requirements were put into place.
So those buildings sometimes are just not accessible.
Right.
And as a wheelchair user, I'm fortunate enough to where I can get up and walk if short distances if I had to. So I don't experience complete isolation. But if there's ever that barrier to accessibility, one, we find a way to get into the building, or two, my friends or whoever just go into that building, see whatever it is to see, take some pictures and show them to me when they come back out. But it's
And I know one of your passion, you're a history buff, and I know that's got to be really tough to not be able to get in as easy as you want, or not in at all, especially because that's such a passion of yours.
It is a definite passion of mine, and it has impeded some things, but because I'm in a wheelchair, because I'm a wheelchair user, I've had some experiences that some folks haven't gotten the chance to see.
Okay, so what are some of those?
For example, over in London, Westminster Cathedral. Because I'm a wheelchair user, I don't have to pay the fee to get in first.
Oh, nice.
So it's a free entrance to a historic building.
Does a friend get those same benefits?
Myself and a companion.
Hey, let's go.
So come on, let's go. But they do a tour of the cathedral, and in one of the places that the tour goes, there's some steps, which the cathedral was built hundreds of years ago. So what they do is they take you behind the velvet rope, and you get to see some things in the cathedral behind the scenes that the average tourist would not see.
And you were eating that up.
I was definitely eating that up.
All right, let's talk about, like, socially. Hypothetically, like, so, I'm going out, like we're going out somewhere. There's things that I just don't even cross my mind, of things that I need to check on. Some of the things that does that person like the food? Does that person have any allergies? Like, those are some things, as a guy that cares about my friends, needs or whatever. But there's certain things that I don't think of, but I know that you've had some experiences with some friends, whether it be in college or even later in your adult years, that friends were really looking out for you because they were just a good friend. Do you have any examples of that you... First off, what are some of the things, like when you're just going out socially, what are some of the things that you think of that maybe I wouldn't think of?
Well, the first thing is definitely accessibility.
Sure.
Is the building accessible? Can I physically get to the
stairs to get into the front door? Right.
Yes. So that's the first thing I would think of is accessibility to the building, and then to go a little bit further with that is the restroom accessible? And that's a big thing. If it's,
obviously,
if the restroom is not accessible, then that poses a problem. And so it's for me it's the accessibility.
Right.
Restrooms, the steps, the front door. Can I physically get to that? Do we have to park a mile away?
Are those things that you check on before, like if you're going to restaurant X, do you call restaurant X ahead of time, or do you just, like, it's a roll of the dice and you hope it all works out?
I occasionally call, but Google is your friend.
Google is your friend.
You can check on the map
all the time.
You can zoom into the street, see the location, physically see the door in, if there's steps or not, and then you go from there.
Has there been cases where friends went beyond before you even had to check it out, and they did some of those things for you?
Definitely. I've had some times where we've gone out as friends, or my wife's gone out we on dates, where they've called ahead and checked all that out for me, so I don't have to do that. And
you just get to enjoy the night.
I just get to enjoy the night, and it doesn't happen often, but sometimes when we get to the say a restaurant, the chair's already pulled out for me.
Oh, nice.
So I mean, that's
so you just roll up to the table,
thinking ahead,
right?
And I can just roll in with no problems.
How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel included, and just it feels good.
Is that like obviously like early childhood memories, like you remember before the Accessibility Act, how that made you feel, like isolated from what your friends were doing? Is that something that is common with a wheelchair user, that you're constantly fighting this battle of feeling included? Is that something that, like, is that common for you, your friends that are in wheelchairs? Like, is that something that's a kind of this common denominator for a lot of people in your case?
It's a very common denominator because, again, the accessibility issue. It's if you can't get into whatever venue you're going to, you can't be included in your group of friends.
So people, your friends, your wife, obviously, that go out of their way to make sure you're feeling as included as possible. Like because that's something you struggle with, that's going to be something high on your radar that you value, right?
It is. Yeah. It is. And at times I feel bad because that we have to do that.
Right.
But on the other hand, it's my friends are taking care of me, and that shows that they care about me, and they want me to be included in whatever the activity is.
And I think for those that are that are not wheelchair users, like I said before, there's no ill intent. It's not like this vicious attack on. It's just something that's not crossing, a lot of time our mind. A good example, and we've joked about this a lot. Our parking lot here at work, it gets full all the time. Like especially on Tuesdays and Thursdays, there's no parking spots. And there's a couple of handicap spots, which you and Jill and Ronnie, they take up. So there's usually a spot for you, which, you got a little bit of an advantage there.
I do.
But for my big old pickup truck, a lot of times there's not. And I'll pull up right on the, right next to the sidewalk. And what do?
You park in front of the curb cut.
And it's something I never think of. And to be honest, like, I don't know that it even registers, like, why that curb cut is even there. It's for wheelchair users to be able to get up on the sidewalk. And there's been many times, and I know, like, it's half joking, but also, there's a little bit of truth behind every joke. I know that. Like, man, here's that big white truck, parked in front of the ramp. It's like, I did it again. And I know, like, for me, like, those are such small things, and they seem like they're insignificant. But for you to be able to get on a sidewalk, you can't get to work without it, right? I mean, that's a major deal. And so it's caused me to slow down a little bit. And here's what I think, bottom line, is it causes me to think about more than just myself. My own convenience. I'm closest to the door. There's no other parking spots. Like, I'm just going to park where I can park. And I'm only thinking about my own conveniences, and what working here and you being, a friend has caused me to not just think of my own conveniences. So I appreciate that. And I also am beginning to learn more and more, not in how that makes a wheelchair user feel, when there's those conveniences are taken away. It's not just a convenience, it's a necessity.
Exactly.
And so, I look at it as, well, it's just easier to step up than stepping up and walk up the ramps. Like, no, like, it's way bigger than that. Like, this is their entry to work, for crying out loud. So just those kind of things has been really eye-opening. And I know that, like, some people might be watching and they're like, that's so insignificant, but it's not.
It's not.
Like, this is your world. Yeah. So are there any other, like, instances that you can think of that just friends went out of their way? It might not be friends, maybe it was a colleague. And then we're going to talk in your kind of life at Lyft and get into that world, because that's a good story. Is there any other cases that you can think of that, like, just your friends, like, man, they just went above and beyond to make sure I felt included? Where maybe it was a small thing to them, but it was a really big thing to you.
Yeah, there was one time in college, I had a roommate who I've known for almost over 20 years, and the fire alarm went off in the building, and I was up on the second floor, and the elevators weren't working. So without even thinking, he met me in the hallway and said, "All right, get up, let's go." And he picked up my chair and carried it down the stairs for me.
Nice.
And that was something he didn't even think about. He just jumped in and did it. So that was almost 15 years ago now.
And you still remember it.
I still remember it.
That's really great. Can we talk about your Lyft involvement?
Absolutely, let's do it.
So how did you get connected? Like, you've been here for a while. You got a history here.
I do.
What was your first exposure to Lyft?
So my first exposure to Lyft was Breakaway 2011.
Okay.
That was the
20 or 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
Bad at math.
That was the
words and math.
That was the first breakaway camp that Lyft did, and I was actually a student over at the seminary in Oviedo at the time.
Nice.
And a couple of months prior to camp, I was contacted by Mike Bates, a good friend of Lyft, who was looking for. He had a connection to the seminary, and he was looking for volunteers to serve at camp. But saw the cost for camp, and I thought that I'm a student. There's no way I can afford that. So fast forward to the day before camp started. I get a call from this guy named Jim, who I've never spoken to.
Yeah.
And he says, "Hey, if you can make it to camp tomorrow, your cost is covered.
Nice.
We just need you to come. We just need you to come and serve at camp." So
yeah. You weren't coming as a camper, like you were coming as a volunteer.
I was coming as a volunteer, as crew.
Gotcha.
As crew. So less than 12 hours later, I'm on the campground with people that I've never met. And I was 29 years old, and that was the first disability camp I had ever been to.
Wow, you were just thrown into the deep end.
I jumped right in.
And how was that? Like, how was that week?
Within the first 15 minutes of being on campground, talking to Jim and Ronnie and some of the other volunteers, I knew that this was something that I wanted to pursue and wanted to be a part of. It made that much of an impact on me.
So you've started volunteering with Lyft, and that first camp, obviously went amazing. At what point did you begin thinking, like, how early was it that you're like, this could be a job, this could be a career for me? Like, where did that thought process begin?
Well, at the end of that first week of camp, when it was over, I spoke with Jim, and I said, I don't know in what capacity, I don't know how. I don't even know why at this point, but this is a ministry. This is a group of people that I know I need to be around and I want to be around. So I don't even know what I'm asking for at this point, but can we figure out something that I could do with Lyft?
Awesome. And did that start like right after camp? How long did you wait?
It took a couple of months. I was still doing some work at the seminary, so I was busy. But I believe it was the summer, fall of 2012.
Okay.
So just about a year.
Okay.
Where we started to do more things, and they brought me on.
Nice. What do you do? What do you do with Lyft?
I don't
know. When you figure it out, let me know. And when you figure out what I'm supposed to be doing, let me know. Yeah. We do videos. That's what we do. You do have some jobs around here. Well, and you do a very good job with them, by the way.
Right now, I manage the medical equipment bank that we have. So we have an equipment bank. We loan out wheelchairs, walkers, durable medical equipment, things like that to folks who need it. I do a lot of the admin, social media. I do whatever you tell me to do. So it's not one thing. It's being a part of a team, jumping in and doing whatever needs to be done to help the ministry move forward. So.
And no 2 days look the same around here.
No 2 days look the same, and that's what I enjoy about coming into the office is we have a plan of what we're doing, but things always come up.
Always changes.
And it's always a joy to come to work.
Yeah, I agree. I feel the same way. Well, your tenure here at Lyft, though, it hasn't just been one steady stream, right? Like there was a little hiccup there in the middle. I don't want to say like hiccups sounds like a negative thing. But you haven't been working here since 2011 or 12.
No, I started 2012 12, and then my wife and I moved to Boston in the summer of 2016. My wife works in clinical research. She's a project manager, doing a fantastic job up there. So one of the major areas of clinical research is Boston. So that was first reason for moving up there. Second is I'm from New England originally, so it was almost like going back home.
Right.
So, go watch the Boston Red Sox play Fenway Park.
Whatever.
But also, third reason, and one of the bigger reasons was I needed to have a shunt replacement surgery. So, average lifetime of a shunt's about 10 years. I had mine in for about 36 years.
You outlived that thing.
I was due
Yeah.
For a shunt replacement. So, one of the best places that we found to have that was Boston. So the best doctors that do that specific surgery are there.
Nice.
So that was 3 of the reasons why we moved up there.
Yeah.
And while I was up there, I had the privilege of being a director for a nonprofit
Nice.
up in New England. And in this 2018, 2019, my wife and I started to realize and recognize I was having some issues with my shunt up in New England with the pressure systems and the weather, and my wife, being the science based person that she is, loves research. So she did some research and found that New England is one of the worst places in the country to live for pressure systems and shunts.
Oh, wow.
And she found that Central Florida is one of the best places to live.
Hey, lucky for us.
And there was summer of 2019. I came back down to Florida for it was actually a breakaway 2019. Came back.
That's where we met.
That's where we met. Exactly. Came back to volunteer, and I stayed for a couple of days after camp. So I was in Florida for about 2 weeks, and noticed I wasn't having headaches. I wasn't feeling off like I was up in New England.
Right.
And within 2 to 3 hours of landing back in Boston at the airport,
It went right back.
it went right back. I was having the headaches, and I felt off.
Yeah.
So that's when we made that decision to have me come back to Florida. My wife still works in clinical research in Boston.
Oh, well.
Her office is up there, and everything that she needs is up there. So I moved back to Florida in December of 2019, and the idea was she was going to commute back and forth, spend about a week and a half here out of the month, and then March of 2020 happened, and that was a challenge.
Yeah,
so
for sure. So you've had a long distance marriage.
We have.
No, y'all traveled back and forth. You just got back from Boston.
I did. I was up there for about 2 weeks.
And,
yeah.
I know that is challenging, but your health, obviously, like that just wasn't working.
I was having about 4 to 5 bad days a week up in Boston, and I took a journal of all of 2020, and I had 28 bad days here in Florida. So it's much better here in Florida.
Well, that's certainly not ideal for your marriage, for your health, for sure. And I keep there's going to be something's going to work out with. Sarah needs to just move down here.
Well,
where are you? Just kidding. No pressure. No, in all honesty, though, Lyft is lucky to have you back. And was that something that you and Jim and Lyft, did y'all work that out before you moved back down to Florida, or was that like, did you knock on the door like, hey, I'm back, can I have my job back? Like, how did that work out?
Well, it was a funny story. In the summer of 2019. I was actually in conversations with Jim and Ronnie about opening a Lyft office somewhere in New England, of kind of duplicating what Lyft is doing here in Florida, just bringing it to New England. And then it was right around October of 2019 where I called Jim and I said, hey, I'm actually moving back down to Florida.
Right.
I don't know even what I'm asking for, but do you have anything for me to do? And Jim said, we'll find something for you to do. Just get down here.
Sounds like that's a common theme between you and Jim. We'll find something.
And that was my interview process again with Jim and Ronnie.
They like you.
Yeah, I like them.
And you do a great job. Like, one of your main jobs here is you handle the medical equipment bank, and you do a fantastic job. When you were gone for a couple of weeks, I had to maintain that, and I'm pretty sure I was texting you and calling you like, you need to get back down here.
Yep.
I did not.
But I knew you could handle it.
Yeah, I did, but I was ready for you to come back. Before we go, what one of the things that we've talked about, and I really feel like you're a huge advocate. I don't know if it is the right word, but that inclusion, because you felt excluded from so many groups from a very young age, some of your earliest memories in school, and so what would you say to somebody watching this video, and that's their world, like they feel extremely isolated, they feel extremely excluded. What would you say to encourage them, and maybe even inspire them to put themselves out there? Like what would you encourage those people to do?
Yeah, I do know firsthand the effects of isolation and being in that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
I would encourage folks to, as Ronnie puts it, find your tribe.
Mm-hmm.
Find people that can support you, that understand what you're going through, that don't just say that they understand it, but
right.
actually understand it and know what you're going through. Can hold you accountable. 'Cause with isolation, it's easy to stay isolated. It's easy just to say, hey, no, I can't do this. I don't want to go out. It's too much effort. So find people that'll push you into being around people and being with others. So definitely try to find your tribe.
Obviously, and you can have multiple tribes. One of your probably your biggest tribe is here at Lyft. And what are some other things that you pushed yourself out there to find your people? What other groups are you a part of?
Sure. Well, when I came back to Florida, I'm living down in Lakeland,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the reasons that we chose Lakeland was that's one of the area that I know the most amount of people, and so if I ever needed anything, I have a built-in tribe right
Mm-hmm.
there, so to speak.
Yeah.
I've been a part of a couple of sports teams that athletics are when you have that team mentality, that team mindset,
right.
that's a big
You look out
thing.
for each other.
You look out for each other.
Right.
So I've done a few things like that, but Lyft has been big with building that tribe.
Yeah. And that tribe can get bigger and bigger and bigger. We would love to have as many people that want to be in our tribe as possible, right? Well, Andrew, you survived.
I did.
Good job.
Good. Thank
Good job,
you.
man. I appreciate you being in this conversation. I think a lot of people that are going to watch this video, they're going to be encouraged and probably challenged to put themselves out there a little bit. So good job, man.
Good deal. Thank you.